Time was the most valuable resource in this world. Every person who reached the age of 30 entered a process called the time loop, where their memory was wiped clean. Everything would start anew, a new identity, a new life, with no recollection of their previous one. However, a group of young people had uncovered the secrets buried beneath this system. Laszlo, Alina, Rin, and Kale had begun to notice the flaws in the system. These young individuals discovered that each loop carried the same memories, but people's minds were deliberately erased. One day, Laszlo stumbled upon an old book in an underground library, learning that it was possible to escape this loop. The book spoke of the wheels of time, which, according to legend, controlled the flow of time and trapped people in the loop. If we find and destroy these wheels, we can break the loop, Rin said. But it's incredibly dangerous, Kale warned. The system will notice us immediately. We either gain our freedom or lose everything, Laszlo declared with determination. As Laszlo, Alina, Rin, and Kale set out to find the wheels of time, they couldn't have predicted how dangerous the unknown realms would be. The further they moved away from their city, the darker and more mysterious the world around them became. The sky turned a shade of gray, the trees twisted into strange shapes, and a fog drifted across the ground, accompanied by eerie rustling noises with every step they took. Everything feels wrong here, Alina said in a trembling voice. These are lands uncharted by humans, Rin said, studying the map. But that won't stop us. It better not, Kale added firmly. Along the way, the group encountered creatures unlike anything they had ever faced. The first was a monstrous being with bone-like legs that attacked them. Its scream was a deafening shriek, and each step it took caused the ground to tremble. This might be the end for us, Alina whispered, her eyes wide with fear. No, we can do this. Laszlo shouted, drawing his sword and charging at the creature. Rin and Kale quickly joined him, while Alina hung back, ready to strike at the perfect moment. The battle with the creature was fierce. Their swords and weapons struggled to pierce its thick hide. Each blow elicited enraged shrieks from the creature. But by working together, they managed to bring it down. Rin delivered the final blow, locking eyes with the beast as it collapsed. This is only the beginning, Kale said, panting heavily. It's going to get harder from here. As they pressed on through the realms, the group began to feel the strain both mentally and physically. These lands were filled not only with physical dangers, but also with mental illusions. One evening, while they set up camp, each of them faced a different illusion. Laszlo saw a friend he had lost in the past. The illusion was so real that for a moment, he considered leaving the campsite to follow them. But Alina's voice echoed in his mind, pulling him back. Laszlo, I know you're seeing something that doesn't belong here. Remember, it's just an illusion, Alina said in a calm voice. Kale, on the other hand, was trapped in a nightmare, repeatedly witnessing the death of his family. Reliving those moments shook him to his core. Rin stayed by his side, talking to him, trying to pull him out of the mental prison. Kale, it's just an illusion. You're stronger than this, Rin said, gripping Kale's shoulder. Despite all these dangers, the group supported one another, overcoming each mental trial one by one, and continued their journey. However, each of them began to change personally during this difficult journey. Alina, who had previously been quiet and fearful, began to take on a leadership role in the group. We came here together, and we'll return together, Alina said, her eyes shining with determination. Rin examined the map once more. The wheels must be close, he said, scanning the surroundings. But this place is unlike anywhere we've seen before. Their surroundings were silent and dark. Only a distant, muffled mechanical sound could be heard, like the grinding of metal gears. Alina had a feeling that this sound was coming from the wheels of time. This sound, we're close to finding them, Alina said, her voice wavering between excitement and fear. Whatever happens, we need to be prepared, Laszlo said. We don't know what kind of defenses the wheels might have. What if we find them and can't stop them? Kale asked, trying to conceal the worry in his eyes. Rin placed a reassuring hand on Kale's shoulder. We've come this far. There's no turning back. We'll find a way to stop them, he said with confidence. As the group advanced towards the source of the sound, the world around them became even more bizarre and alien. The closer they got to the wheels of time, the more the fabric of reality seemed to unravel. Trees would grow and shrink in an instant, and massive roots would burst from the ground. The flow of time seemed distorted. Sometimes, seconds stretched into hours, and other times, hours passed in the blink of an eye. Finally, When they reached the location of the wheels, an enormous structure appeared before their eyes, unlike anything they could have imagined. The wheels of time were part of a massive mechanism, with gigantic, glowing gears turning within it, constantly pushing time forward and backward. Each wheel was made of metals that gleamed like gold and silver, engraved with strange, ancient symbols. These symbols bore the marks of a civilization that had left its traces thousands of years ago. "This is it," Laszlo whispered, holding his breath. "This is where time is controlled." Alina took a step toward the wheels. "We have to find a way to stop them," she said, her eyes locked on the gears. Just then, a massive figure they hadn't noticed before appeared beside the wheels. Made of metal, resembling a human but with red light shining from its eyes, this figure seemed to be the guardian of the wheels. "Be careful," Rin warned, drawing his sword. "It looks like this figure is going to fight us." "We're going to have to take it down," Kale added, keeping his eyes fixed on the figure. The figure moved towards the group without any warning. It was fast, powerful, and utterly ruthless. Laszlo lunged at the figure, making the first strike with his sword to draw its attention. But the figure, as if it had already anticipated Laszlo's movements, easily blocked the sword and flung Laszlo backward. Alina shouted, "It must have a weak point. If we work together, we can defeat it." Rin and Kale followed Alina's command and surrounded the figure. Rin distracted it while Kale targeted the areas where the figure's armor seemed thinner and more fragile. When the figure quickly turned and struck Rin, Rin managed to plunge his sword into the figure's chest, but it didn't seem affected by the blow. Just then, Alina approached from behind and struck the figure's mechanism with the dagger she held. The figure hesitated for a moment, as if it short-circuited, and Laszlo seized the opportunity to make one final strike, severing the figure's head from its body. As the figure collapsed to the ground, the red light in its eyes began to fade. "Finally, we did it," Laszlo said, panting heavily. But the gears were still turning. The group's victory was only a small step forward. The real challenge now lay in stopping them. "How are we going to stop the wheels of time?" Kale asked, his eyes fixed on the gears. Alina replied with determination in her voice, "We'll find a solution. But first, we need to understand how these gears work." Rin said, "These aren't just ordinary machines. There must be some kind of energy source. If we find and cut off that source, the gears might stop." "Maybe," Laszlo said thoughtfully, "the thing powering these gears isn't just an energy source but also our minds. Controlling time might be using some kind of mental energy to reset people's memories." "Does that mean we have to use our own minds to stop the gears?" Alina asked. "Maybe," Laszlo replied. "But it could be dangerous. By connecting our minds to the gears, we could take control, but if we fail, we could lose ourselves entirely." The group stood silently in front of the gears, deep in thought. The flow of time was pushing them toward a point of no return, and every decision they made would be a turning point for the world. "No matter what, we have to try," Alina finally broke the silence. "We're going to risk everything to break this cycle." "We're going to connect our minds to the gears," Alina said, with determination in her eyes. "But it won't be easy. We must be prepared for the illusions the gears create. We'll be facing our darkest fears." Laszlo drove his sword into the ground and said, "This might be the toughest enemy we've ever fought. But we're in this together. We'll support each other and win this battle." Rin stepped forward and asked, "How do we connect our minds? We don't fully understand how this mechanism works." As Alina examined the symbols beneath the gears, she said, "These symbols bear traces of an ancient language. We must use these symbols to connect our minds. Each of us needs to activate a different symbol." Kale hesitated and said, "These symbols could be dangerous. One wrong move could trap us." "We have no other choice," Alina replied. "We have to take every risk to break this cycle." The group began working on the symbols, each taking a deep breath. These symbols were the bridges that would link their minds to the gears. When Alina placed her hand on one of the symbols, a light suddenly flashed before her eyes, and she found herself in an entirely different place. She was no longer in front of the wheels of time, she was lost in the depths of her past. Alina found herself in the house where she spent her childhood. The interior was the same, but everything seemed misty and blurry, like a dream. How is this possible?" she said, bewildered. She heard a voice. It sounded like her sister Evelyn's voice. "Alina, where are you?" the voice called out. Alina was startled by a sudden wave of fear. Evelyn had died in an accident years ago. This was an illusion, a mental trick of the wheels of time. But the realism of this trick began to strain Alina's mind. Evelyn's voice reminded her of the guilt she had been carrying for years. Evelyn. Alina shouted, running in the direction of the voice. But no matter how far she ran, the voice seemed to drift further away. For a moment, she considered giving up, but then she remembered, this was just an illusion. The wheels of time were bringing her deepest fear to the surface. This isn't real, Alina said, closing her eyes. This is just a game. Evelyn isn't here, she's dead. As she tried to convince herself of this truth, the voice's influence gradually began to fade. She couldn't let the gears control her. I have to break this cycle, she repeated. At the same time, Rin was fighting his own mental battle. The gears had taken him back to a traumatic memory of his mother's death. Rin began to relive the pain he felt when he was forced to see his mother on her deathbed. However, he thought he was doomed to experience this memory again. No, that's in the past, Rin said, his eyes filling with tears. I have to overcome this. My mother's death wasn't my fault. Kale, on the other hand, had returned to the town he had abandoned years ago. The gears reminded him of his greatest regret, leaving his family behind to chase adventure, now reliving the pain of being separated from them. This is just an illusion, Kale muttered, trying to keep his mind clear. I can't change the mistakes I made in the past, but I still have a chance to break this cycle. Laszlo was transported back to his childhood by the time gear's influence. His own fears brought back memories of the difficult times he had with his father. His father's harsh treatment and the feelings of never being good enough once again pulled Laszlo into darkness. I have to overcome this, Laszlo said, clenching his fists. It doesn't matter how my father saw me. I've carved my own path. Each of them, though weakened by their mental battles, found strength in their resolve. Even though they felt the control of the time gears, they continued to fight to conquer their fears. Finally, Alina's symbol fully activated, releasing the power to stop the gears. The others also managed to activate their symbols. The gears' rotation slowed, metallic sounds echoed, and eventually, they stopped completely. Alina took a deep breath and opened her eyes. The time gears were right in front of her, but they were no longer moving. We did it, she said in a faint voice. We've broken the cycle. Laszlo, Rin, and Kale opened their eyes as well. Each of them was exhausted from their mental struggles, but they were also filled with pride for what they had accomplished. No one will lose their memory anymore, Rin said, looking at the gears. This cycle is broken forever. As the time gears stopped, Alina and her friends took a deep breath, trying to savor their victory. However, the silence that followed this victory was short-lived. The gear cessation had broken the cycle of time and memory, but the consequences soon became apparent. The air around them grew increasingly cold and heavy, as if reality itself was beginning to collapse. Something's wrong, Kale said, looking around nervously. Laszlo, scanning the surroundings with his eyes, said, We've stopped the gears, but that might have destabilized the entire system. It looks like the fabric of reality is unraveling. Rin turned to Alina with concern. Could the time gears have been maintaining not just the cycle but also the balance of this world? He asked. Alina, wrestling with her doubts, said, I don't know. But we have to do something. If this collapse doesn't stop, we might all be buried under it. At that moment, there was an explosion, and the wall behind the time gears shattered open. A dark portal emerged, seemingly leading to an unknown dimension. The portal opened into an ambiguous darkness, but it was also emitting a powerful energy. What is that? Laszlo asked, taking a few steps toward the portal. Did this portal open because the gears stopped? Rin, feeling the energy emanating from the portal, said, This might be something hidden behind the time gears. This portal could be a secret path related to how the gears work. Alina, looking into the portal, made a decision based on her instincts. This portal could be the key to uncovering the secrets of the time gears, she said. If we want to break this cycle permanently, we have to go beyond the portal. Kale, approaching the portal, said, But this could be very dangerous. We don't know what we'll find. He added, This could be a place no one has ever explored before. Alina nodded resolutely. Yes, it could be dangerous, but we have no other choice as this world crumbles, she said. We'll go together, and no matter what we face, we must end this cycle completely. The group exchanged looks filled with trust and then moved toward the portal. Each of them faced the fear of stepping into the unknown, but they also acted with a sense of duty to save this world. Chapter 6: The Test of Time. As they passed through the gateway, they found themselves in an entirely different world. This world was suspended in a timeless void. There was no up or down. An infinite darkness stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted here and there with beams of light that glimmered as if they were echoes of the past, slowly drifting through the void. This place, it doesn't seem real, Kale said, gazing around in bewilderment. It might be a place beyond time, Rin said thoughtfully. Perhaps this is the heart of the mechanism behind the wheels of time. As Alina moved forward in this strange dimension, she said, something is waiting for us here. The opening of this gateway can't be a coincidence. This might be a test to fully destroy the cycle. Laszlo, carefully examining the surroundings, added, then we need to be cautious. We don't know what awaits us here. As the group continued through this timeless void, they encountered a figure that emerged from among the beams of light. This figure, like a reflection, triggered something within each of their minds. It was the echo of the first human who had created the wheels of time. Who is this? Rin asked, taking a step toward the figure. The figure looked at them silently and then spoke, I am the creator of this world. Their voice echoed around them like a whisper. I created the wheels to protect this cycle. But now you have stopped it. Alina, staring into the figure's eyes, said, this cycle was a prison. You controlled people by erasing their memories, she accused. We broke those chains. The figure bowed their head slightly and replied, yes, but everything comes with a price. When the cycle was broken, the force that kept this world in balance was also released, they explained. If you wish to save this world, you must protect the last remaining balance within this dimension. Kale, puzzled, asked, how can that be possible? We only wanted to break the cycle. That was just the beginning, the figure said. Now, you must face time itself. If you succeed, this world can be rebuilt. If you fail. As the figure's words echoed in their minds, the group realized the magnitude of the danger they faced. This was not just a fight to break a cycle, but a test where they would have to confront time itself. Alina took a step closer to the figure and asked, what must we do? The figure sent a beam of light toward them, saying, in this dimension, everything is a reflection of your thoughts. You must confront your fears and desires. This will be your test. The group exchanged a final determined look before deciding to journey into the depths of their own minds within this timeless dimension. The wheels of time had stopped, but this was only the beginning of a greater struggle. This time, they had to save not only their memories but time itself. As the figure's words echoed in their ears, Alina and her friends took a deep breath. Each of them stood still in the timeless dimension, preparing to face the fears and desires that lay deep within their minds. This test was not only a physical struggle, but also a journey into the darkest corners of their souls. In this strange dimension, where light shone and darkness deepened, the world around them began to change. As the ground seemed to slip from beneath their feet, each found themselves in a separate space. These spaces were filled with strange yet familiar images that reflected their greatest fears and internal conflicts. When Alina opened her eyes, she found herself in the old village where she had spent her childhood. Everything was as she remembered it, but something was off. It was as if time had stopped here, the people weren't moving, and the wind wasn't blowing. As Alina walked through the village streets, memories of the past and the people she had lost flooded her mind. In the village square, Alina's greatest fear, being powerless in the face of time's stillness, came to life. If I can't break this cycle, I'll be trapped here forever, she thought. But a voice interrupted these thoughts. Alina, a soft voice called out. When she turned, she saw her little sister Mira, whom she had lost long ago. Can you save me? Alina, unable to hold back her tears, said, I wish I hadn't let you go. However, Mira approached her and said, you must accept that time is not with you. You cannot turn back time, but you can shape the future. These words deeply affected Alina. Holding her sister's hand, she said, you're right. I can't change the past, but by breaking this cycle, I can save the future. As the village began to slowly fade away, Alina's resolve grew even stronger. Kale found himself in a vast battlefield. Around him were ruined buildings, a burning sky, and wounded soldiers lying everywhere. Gripping his sword tightly with one hand, he tried to suppress the rising fear within him. This was his greatest fear, failure and inadequacy. He knew he had to face himself. Just then, a massive, armored figure appeared before him. This figure was a reflection of the power and authority Kale had always sought but never achieved. "You were never strong enough," the figure said, its voice echoing like Kale's own thoughts. "Only the weak fail." Facing the figure, Kale replied, "Strength is not just physical. True strength comes from accepting and confronting your weaknesses. Even if I doubt myself, I have the resolve to do what is right." The figure slowly vanished after hearing these words. Kale had overcome the fear growing within him and felt strong again. The battlefield around him gradually dispersed. Rin found herself in an endless hall of mirrors. In every corner and reflection, she faced her own face and different versions of herself. This was Rin's greatest fear, not knowing who she was and what she represented. A voice echoed from within the mirrors, asking, "Who are you, Rin? A hero or a coward? What is your truth?" Feeling lost in the mirrors, Rin slowly made a decision. "I am Rin, with all my flaws and virtues," she said. "My truth comes from facing my fears and learning from them." Following these words, the mirrors began to crack and shatter. Rin had embraced the chaos within herself and found inner peace. Laszlo was moving through a dark cave. With every step, the cold breath of the unknown was felt at his neck. This darkness represented his greatest fear, facing the unknown. A voice called from the depths of the cave, "You will get lost in this darkness, Laszlo. The unknown will consume you." Suppressing his fear, Laszlo said, "Facing the unknown is only possible when we step forward. I will not succumb to fear." The darkness of the cave slowly dissipated, and Laszlo found himself back with his friends. They all looked at each other with relief, having successfully passed their tests. After each of them had faced their trials, they returned to the starting point in the timeless dimension. Now, they were all stronger both physically and spiritually. They understood the secret of the wheels of time and the balance within this dimension. With the destruction of the machine, everyone's memories were restored. People struggled to reconcile their old and new memories, leading to widespread chaos in society. The streets were filled with people questioning their lives and going mad. Laszlo asked himself, "What have we done? Was this right?" "We did what had to be done," Kale said. "There is a price for freedom. Now we must face this chaos." While Alina and Rin worked to control the chaos, the others helped to establish the new order. However, everything was collapsing too quickly. After a while, the chaos began to subside, and people started working to establish a new order. The old system was completely destroyed, and what would replace it was uncertain. Laszlo and his friends took the lead in creating this new order. However, freedom meant different things to different people. Some wanted to restore the old order, while others sought a completely new beginning. Even within the group, there were disagreements. Rin said, "Now everyone is free to choose their own path. Our mission was to give people the right to choose." Eventually, a new order was established. People continued to live with their pasts, without having their memories erased. Yet, the burden of this freedom was heavy. Despite all the challenges they faced, Laszlo, Alina, Rin, and Kale had offered humanity a new beginning. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, see you in the next story.